Okay, another video on chainsaw milling. Just a little background. I cut this big maple down in early March, and it is now the third weekend in August. And I took all the branches and I cut up a whole bunch of it into firewood, but anything over a certain diameter, I didn't want to just burn it. But I couldn't find anybody that wanted to just buy the log. I didn't know anything about chainsaw milling, but I knew that it was possible, so I went and bought one. And of course I had to buy a bigger saw. And I've been working on it the last few months, and I'm down to just a few branches left. Thought I'd do a video of my thought process on this one particular piece. Now, I've got some issues and some not issues. I think that there should be some really good grain in here, because this crotch, we've got a grain coming this way and a grain coming this way, and everything in between should be all kinds of neat, kind of mangled up grain. But a couple issues that I have. One is because this is from a branch and not the main trunk. I'm not sure how well you can see it in the lighting, but this right here is the pith. That's the center of the growth rings. And you can see there's a heck of a lot more below than there is above. That means that while this was growing, the stress was very asymmetrical. And that's frankly why a lot of people didn't want to buy it, because they say as soon as you cut it, it's going to really start warping. So I'm going to take that into consideration when I cut it. I'm going to make it a little bit thicker than I normally do, so that if it warps as it dries, I'll be able to plane off a little bit more to make it level. This will probably be some kind of an end table. So I'm going to go change my clothes into more cutting garb, but what I'm going to do is try to cut the top flat. You can see that down here it really slopes down. So to get a straight cut the first time, I'm going to, I'd have to waste way too much on the top, maybe even getting into that pith. So I'm just going to skim a couple inches off the top. Probably have to put my ladder frame on top for the second cut as well, but hopefully I'll get a few cuts out of it. And I'm going to cut that little knob off. The other thing is that my mill maxes at 20-inch width, and it's just over 20 inches from that point to that point. But I'm hoping that I can just turn the saw a little bit to make that curve. If not, I'll trim a little off of that as well. Okay, we'll be back later when we're all set up. Okay, I got that first cut off for a nice level, but again, because it drops off quite a bit at the very end, I decided to put it back on again, and I'm going to set the mill to go down about 1.5 inches, and that should still be a little bit above the pith. And by then we should see some grain. Right now, no fancy grain showing yet, but some nice typical purples from Walnut. Okay, let's see what we got here. That was the first cut. All right. So I'm gonna go get some water. Okay. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff. I got some real interesting little curly things here that I wasn't expecting. And I got some rotting and bug stuff there, but alright. We're still quite a ways away from that actual branch, so we'll see how it goes. I'm not sure. This may all just be a good learning experience, but that's what we're here for. Okay, I anticipate this getting interesting. You see there's the pith, so this cut is under the pith. But over here on the side with the branches, I'm still above the pith. So we'll see what it looks like. Okay, obviously the bark's coming off. Oh yeah. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. Okay. Not much on the fancy grain in terms of pattern, but and again, I don't know if you can see it that well, but there's a lot of greens and purples in here. I think when that gets all planed and sanded and finished, that'll look nice. I suspect that some of these cracks are going to get a lot bigger, and I might end up having to do some kind of epoxy or something, but that's cool too. I want to practice that. Alright, the battery died while I was cutting, but that's okay. The rest of the cuts are all pretty much like what I got, but these are the pieces I ended up with. Again, this first one is a real narrow one. Might be cutting boards or something. And then this next one is fairly thin as well, but then the last three are 2.5 inch. And Could get some nice grain figure on some of these. This one, again, hard to tell, but there's some curl in there. Some of those stripes are from the chain marks, but anyway, it was a fun experiment cutting these things. Now we just have to stack them up and let them dry a couple years, and they'll do some twisting and warping, and then we'll put them through a joiner and a planer to flatten them out, finish them, and put some legs on them. Okay, hope this wasn't too boring of a video for you.